Well, one day the water dries up, and so this path no longer serves a purpose, but they don't know, and they keep going down that path, and it's empty, and they come back, well, there's nothing there. Hey, welcome back to Uncivilized Rebirth. You are my mission. The reason that I have this channel is to share the information that I've learned through my healing, and hopefully that you'll glean something from it and you'll be able to use it in your own life to help you become a more whole, stable person. Because I know for a fact I needed it and it took years. So I'm trying to take all this information that I've collected over years and years and years and share it. Today I want to talk about the brain, behavior change, and nutrients, and energy, of course. So when we think about behavior change, it's like, I don't like doing this. That's just the way I am. I want to do something different. I want to change my behavior or learn something new. We sometimes people will go to prayer, like just pray about it. Sometimes people will spank their children to change their behavior. So they'll be changing out of fear. Sometimes we change our behavior because we're scared of getting fired. Sometimes we change our behavior because we are not productive in this area and we want to change it so we are productive. I know for me personally, I can be lazy. So it's like I need to change this to be productive. So there's all types of different situations. Let's even take it, for example, you get a new job and it's kind of like the same field, but they have a totally different technique for doing what you did before. And so now you have to change out all those behaviors. I remember in training when I was a soldier, they'd be like, man, the best person to train is somebody that's never, ever trained on this stuff or tried at all. That's because there will be no new behaviors to change, and everything being programmed in will be programmed in exactly in this manner. And I'm going to get into the weeds here a little bit on changing behavior, but looking at it mechanically. So when you come up to a process and you're like, okay, this, let's say, for example, I've been doing woodwork and not on the lathe or anything, but just like cutting stuff out, finishing it. And there's things I need to learn about that I have no idea about. So it's like, okay, instead of just not doing it, it's like, I'm going to learn that I do A, B, and C, A, B, C, D to finish this wood. So once I do it and follow that step very carefully of like A, B, C, D, that gets programmed into my mind. And then that's like these new neural pathways that or connections that happen. Energy goes through there and it goes to a new spot, a new learned skill. And it's learned in that manner. So now let's take this a step further. So we want to change a behavior. So it's like, okay, I want to change this. This behavior is a process that's being activated most likely by an external stimuli or an internal stimuli or a myriad of different motivators, like just wanting to be comfortable or avoid conflict or anything of that nature. So we have energy run up the spine and it goes to the brain. It hits this process and it goes up there and it's like, oh, this process, let's say it's getting up at midnight, going to eat ice cream and sitting on the couch and watching TV. Okay, all of that takes energy. All of it takes energy. So the energy goes to your brain and it says, hey, legs, you need to move. Well, that takes energy. And that's a process. And then it activates the walking process to the fridge. And it's like arm, move, arm, open fridge, grab ice cream, pull it out. Now, a motivator here is like the brain is going to get some dopamine hits. And so it's like, yes, and validate, validate, validate. I know what's going to happen. And so the energy goes up to this process that hits, or these different processes, or this marker, I like to call it. And in this marker, the marker is go eat ice cream. And all these different processes are activated of walk to the fridge, open the fridge, grab the ice cream, grab a ball, scoop it in, put it in there. And this is basically like a music sheet. You know, like on a self-player piano, there's a music sheet. As it goes along, it hits this and hits this and hits this, and it makes that sound. Well, that's kind of what's getting played now. It's like this music sheet's getting played on the character reel. And it's like, do this, do this, do this, do this, and your body does it. Do you ever go into robot mode? You're like, man, I just did all that and I zoned out. I don't even remember like doing it, kind of. Well, that's because your brain is going into a pre-programmed reel that plays out. And it has a reward at the end of once you sit on the couch, you turn on some comedy or a cool action movie, and you start digging into that ice cream. Well, you're just sitting back and you're watching this cool action scene or this hilarious comedy scene, whatever you're, I don't know, whatever you like to watch, or me, and I'm eating ice cream. And my brain's like, yes, eat more ice cream. And then it's like, yes, these cool, amazing things are being seen. It's like dopamine, dopamine. Brain's like just in happy land. And so that process that was activated in those neural pathways that the energy went down are getting used and validated by the dopamine hits. So the next time that it's like, oh, it's midnight, just like you get up, you just zombie walk in there and open it up. That reel is basically getting put on there of like, do this process, like the piano sheet music, like ding, 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 do all this. And the more you do it, the more those pathways are made permanent. Well, not permanent, but more solidified. Let's use this for example. Let's say there is a wagon train going out west, and there's no real civilization yet here. And so we're going out west on the wagon train, and over this one hill, you know that there's a lake over there, about a mile or two. But this through some thick brush, and there's like one or two guys, and they're like, I'm gonna go get water. So they beat a path out there, and it's like they knock down a little bit of the stuff, and you can tell kind of somebody went through there. A couple of weeks later, another wagon train's coming through there, and they see a little bitty path, and maybe they see certain birds that are indicators of the water, and they see a little bit of path. They're like, hey, let's go check this out. We're thirsty. We just made it over this mountain. And 4 or 5 people go down that path because it'd been beaten down just a little bit. Now 4 or 5 people went down that path, and the path gets more and more beaten down. The next wagon train that comes along, there's a pretty decent path that's going through here because people went down it and went back. And so now about 7 or 8 to 10 of them, they're like, hey, get all your buckets. We see the indicators of water. There's a marker here now. And now there's even more of a path. So we're going to go down here, and we're going to walk down here and grab this water and come back. Now nobody's having to explore or search or like dig through the bramble or make it difficult. It's just like, now the 4th wagon train comes along, and there's like, everybody just knows, hey, this is where we go, because there's like a marker there now. There's a beaten path, and the indicators are still up there. And so everybody just knows, because we've gotten information back from these scouts that came back from another wagon train that's further up there. And they told us that, hey, when you get here, you go down here and you get this water and you come back. And there's a great path that's built now. Or not even built, but this just plowed through there. Okay, cool. So that path is tremendously in place now, if that's a word to use. And people are using it consistently on each wagon train. Well, one day the water dries up, and so this path no longer serves a purpose, but they don't know, and they keep going down that path, and it's empty, and they come back, well, there's nothing there. They go down that path, it's empty, there's nothing there. It's like, well, then somebody's like, hey, we got to find a new water source, because this one is not supplying us water anymore. So let's look at that as let's look at the old habit of getting ice cream and watching a movie at night. That was, each time you do it is a person going down that path to get water. And you go down it, and let's say you're doing it just to avoid reality because life super sucks. Let's say just some terrible stuff has happened or you're avoiding some stuff. And this is where you get your unplug from reality and just enjoy yourself. And then before you get back into the shit show of what this life can be, and it is a lot of time. And so each time you go in there and sit there and do that, you're creating that pathway in your mind. You're beating it down and you're making it more and more solidified. But there was a point in time where it was actually useful. It was needed to check out. We need to check out sometimes, but now there is nothing to glean from sitting there eating ice cream and trying to, watch a movie that you've seen a couple of times. So it's like time to plow a new path. Like it's time to create new networks that serve us better. So maybe instead of at midnight, you're sitting there eating ice cream. Now it's like, I know that I'm a creative person. I know I like, let's just say, doing art. And I like drawing at night. Like I'm a night owl and I like to just create. Maybe instead of eating ice cream and watching TV, having input, maybe if I had output. So you're going to need to create a new neural pathway, new processes to, instead of shuffling to the fridge, shuffling and walking purposely to go get your paintbrushes. Oh, the energy is no longer going down this old path. So let's take this example back a little bit. The wagon train comes up and there's this great path. And then there is like a little bitty path, like a couple of branches that are broken. And people came back with nothing, but somebody's like, let's go down this path. It's a path. It's a solid path. You're like, I don't know. It's like, maybe we should go down this one. It is so much easier to take the path of least resistance that's already been created. But this is wherein lies the mechanical part. So you have energy going up your spine to this marker of eat ice cream, watch a movie. And then the energy goes through there and increases as it activates the different functions in the body. But you have to take that energy and instead of going to that old process, which puts that character reel up and that sheet music of do all these things to eat ice cream and watch a movie, now you're trying to create a new marker for the energy to go to this process of go get my paintbrushes, set up the easel, if that's how you say it properly. Think about what I want to paint. Set a paint out. Turn some lights on. Maybe drink some tea. Whatever your thing is. And start painting. This is a whole new way you're using your energy now. And it takes longer to create a new neural pathway in this manner for the fact that it takes longer to get those dopamine hits. So let's say there's this dude that I follow that's super awesome. And he does these drawings of birds and he just does one dot at a time. And it takes him many, many hours. And he'll start over and he's shooting for perfection. And he's a perfectionist. So it's like he'll do a couple, doesn't like that line, he'll destroy them, throw them away. And then he'll go back and he'll work on it until it's like, I like that line, I'm making progress. But he's probably like going to get 12 hours into it before it's completed. So his dopamine hit is not going to be until 12 hours later. It's like delayed. So if you're doing that painting and it's going to take you maybe 3 or 4 nights and you work on it over the course of 2 or 3 weeks and then it's finished, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome. I like what I did. And then you hang it up and you get to see it every time and remember. And that's how that new pathway gets validated. So now the more you start doing that process, it's like that on that wagon trail where people are going down that trail, you're beating a new path, but you're creating new mechanical pathways in your mind that the energy flows down. And the more you do it, the more it's easier to divert that energy to the new behavior. That's why it's hard sometimes to be like, I do it anyway. It's the energy where it's going in the brain. It's like you got to learn how to divert it. And I don't mean that in any way of like trying to insult anybody, whatever. But it's like I had to learn how to divert it. And so with that, you have to look at the mechanics of the brain. What does the brain need? It needs building blocks to create these pathways. It needs to make sure the nerves where the signals run are smooth and they are built properly. Everything needs to be supported. The brain needs energy to burn fuel. It needs fuel to burn. It needs these pathways to be built properly, because when you're building a new pathway, the body's like, I need this nutrients, I need this nutrients to build this, to build this, to build this. And the better the nutrients, the better the pathway is going to be. And the body's always replacing and repairing. So as long as you're supplying the brain with the nutrients it needs, it's going to be repairing and rebuilding and building new with these good building blocks that will last longer. This is something I tell my kids. It's like, imagine that your body is made of bricks, and all the junk food you put in your body is a brick at a micronutrient level. It's like, would you ever build a house made out of marshmallows? Instead of using bricks, I'm going to use marshmallows. I'm going to build the whole house out of marshmallows. Well, that thing's going to melt. It's not going to be stable. It's not going to last very long. But if you use a brick, it will be. So that's the symbolism, or the example there, of eating junk food and garbage food. We're building our body with marshmallows. But if we put in the proper nutrients that it needs to deliver in certain areas to build and grow stronger, then these pathways that we're building to channel our energy down purposefully to get those delayed dopamine hits, which last longer and feel better, that gratification's a million times better, they're going to be built in the proper manner for longevity and to last longer. If you read the description of this video, there's a different way all this is explained in a little more detail. And then there's a list of supplements for your brain. So if you followed any of my other videos, I've talked about the character trigger, I've talked about breath work, I've talked about tapping, I've talked about your character sheet and energy and things of that nature. But if you're working on your path of changing who you are or changing behaviors, I highly suggest just scroll down a little bit down there and look at the list of supplements. And these are what your body needs and what your brain needs to be building and repairing to make things stronger and make it last longer, or more longevity, and have better structure in your brain and in your body. And when you do that, your body will thank you, and it will operate at a much higher capacity, or at the capacity that it was meant naturally to operate at. Anyway, I hope this helps. I hope you take some of this to heart. And I really wanted to share this. A couple of days ago, I was just like, I'm going to really think about what the next video is going to be about. So like I like to do is I like to work out and just ask. I was like, okay, let me see what pops into my brain. On this one, it was like changing behaviors in the brain and nutrients. So it's important to feed the nutrients to the brain that will help create those new pathways in which the energy flows. I hope this helps. I hope you like it. I'm done. I'm going to end the video now. Roadhouse Spiritual Hard.